Welcome back to Crime Unveiled. Today, we delve into a case that continues to baffle investigators and the public alike. The Powell family tragedy. It began with a seemingly mundane missing person report, but as we'll see, the layers of this case are far more complex and disturbing than anyone could have initially imagined. The disappearance of Susan Powell in December 2009 spiraled into a saga involving suspicious circumstances, bizarre behavior, and ultimately, unspeakable tragedy. This case is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. We'll be examining the timeline meticulously, piece by piece, starting with the days leading up to Susan's disappearance. The initial reports painted a picture of a happy family. Susan, a young mother of two, lived with her husband, Josh, and their sons in West Valley City, Utah. There were no outward signs of trouble, no public arguments, no history of domestic violence reports. Yet, within days of Susan's disappearance, cracks began to appear in this facade of normalcy. The circumstances surrounding her vanishing were odd, to say the least. A midnight family camping trip in the middle of winter, a confusing timeline provided by Josh, and a general lack of concern initially displayed by him raised immediate red flags for investigators. These early inconsistencies would become the first threads pulled in a tapestry of deceit that would eventually unravel a horrific truth. One of the key elements that makes the Powell case so compelling and so frustrating is the lack of a definitive answer regarding Susan's fate. Her body has never been found, which presents a significant challenge in securing a conviction. This absence of physical evidence necessitates a meticulous examination of circumstantial evidence, digital footprints, and witness testimonies. We'll be delving into the digital forensics in later episodes, but suffice it to say, the information gleaned from computers and cell phones added yet another layer of complexity to the investigation. The digital world often reveals secrets that the physical world attempts to conceal. The behavior of Josh Powell following Susan's disappearance is perhaps one of the most unsettling aspects of this case. His evasiveness with law enforcement, coupled with his increasingly erratic actions, fueled public suspicion. He initially claimed to have taken his young sons on a camping trip in the freezing Utah desert in the middle of the night, a story that strained credulity from the outset. His subsequent actions, including cleaning the family minivan shortly after Susan's disappearance, and later moving to Washington State with his sons, only intensified scrutiny. Every move he made seemed calculated to deflect attention, yet inadvertently, it drew more suspicion upon him. This case isn't just about a missing person. It's about a family torn apart. The ripple effects of Susan's disappearance extended far beyond her immediate family, impacting friends, neighbors, and the entire community. The media coverage was intense, fueling speculation and adding to the already immense pressure on law enforcement. The public became amateur sleuths, dissecting every detail, every interview, every piece of available information. This intense public interest, while sometimes helpful, also contributed to the spread of misinformation and hampered the investigation in some ways. The story of the Powell family is a tragedy on multiple levels. It's a story of a missing wife and mother, a story of suspected foul play, and a story of a family shattered by secrets and lies. Over the next few episodes, we'll meticulously unpack the timeline of events, analyze the key evidence, and explore the various theories surrounding Susan's disappearance. We'll examine the role of law enforcement, the challenges they faced, and the missteps that may have occurred along the way. This is a complex case, with many twists and turns, so prepare to be captivated, and perhaps even disturbed, by the details we uncover. We'll be looking into the background of Josh and Susan's relationship, exploring any potential stressors or red flags that may have been present before her disappearance. We'll also be examining the roles played by other family members, including Josh's father, Susan Powell, whose involvement adds another layer of complexity to this already tangled web. The influence of family dynamics in this case is undeniable, and understanding those dynamics is crucial to piecing together the puzzle of what happened to Susan. This case captivated the nation not only for its mystery, but also for the human tragedy at its core. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about relationships, family secrets, and the potential for darkness to reside within seemingly ordinary lives. As we delve into the details of the Powell family tragedy, we'll be exploring not just the facts of the case, but also the broader implications for society and the ongoing search for justice. We'll hear from experts, analyze the evidence, and attempt to make sense of the senseless. Before the tragedy struck, the Powell family seemed to live an idyllic life in the quiet, suburban town of Puyallup, Washington. Susan Cox Powell, a vibrant young mother of two, was known for her infectious laugh and dedication to her family. Neighbors often saw her playing in the front yard with her sons, Charlie and Braden, their laughter echoing through the tree-lined streets. The family home, a modest two-story house with a well-maintained lawn, was a picture of domesticity. Barbecues were a common occurrence, with the aroma of grilling food wafting over the neighborhood fences. It seemed like an ordinary, happy American family living the American dream. This tranquility makes the events that followed all the more jarring and difficult to comprehend. It raises the question, what could possibly shatter such a seemingly perfect facade? Puyallup is a small town where everyone knows their neighbors. The kind of place where doors are often left unlocked, and children play freely in the streets. It's a community grounded in traditional values, with a strong sense of togetherness. Church plays a significant role in many residents' lives, providing a moral compass and a social hub. The Powell family appeared to be active members of their local congregation, further embedding them in the community fabric. Susan was described as a devoted mother who actively participated in her son's school activities. She volunteered regularly, and her cheerful presence was a familiar sight at school events. This deep integration into the community makes the subsequent disappearance of Susan all the more baffling and heart-wrenching for the residents of Puyallup. Susan and Josh Powell met through mutual friends at a church social gathering. They quickly bonded over their shared faith and their desire to build a strong family. Josh, a few years older than Susan, was described as a quiet, reserved man, but he seemed to be a loving husband and father. They married young and started their family shortly after. Home videos from that period show a happy couple doting on their young children. Birthdays, holidays, and family vacations were meticulously documented, showcasing a family seemingly enjoying life's simple pleasures. These recordings now serve as poignant reminders of a time before the shadows fell upon the Powell household, leaving an unsettling contrast between the portrayed happiness and the tragic reality that would soon unfold. Josh worked as a computer programmer for a local company. He was known as a reliable and diligent employee, though somewhat introverted. He wasn't particularly social, preferring to spend his free time with his family. Neighbors recall him often working in the yard or tinkering with his car in the driveway. He seemed to embody the image of a responsible husband and father providing for his family. There were no outward signs of trouble, no visible cracks in the family's seemingly perfect facade. It is this very normalcy that makes the ensuing events so perplexing. How could such a seemingly ordinary man become the central figure in such an extraordinary tragedy? The Powell's home, located in a quiet cul-de-sac, was the epitome of suburban comfort. The living room, with its plush sofas and family photos adorning the walls, was clearly the heart of the home. Toys were scattered around, a testament to the presence of young children. A swing set stood in the backyard, its empty seats now a haunting reminder of the children who once played there. The house itself is a silent witness to the unfolding tragedy, holding within its walls the secrets of a family torn apart. It's a physical space that transitioned from a symbol of domestic bliss to a chilling reminder of a life tragically interrupted. Susan was known for her meticulous organization and her talent for creating a warm and inviting home environment. Her love for her children was evident in every detail, from the carefully arranged family photos to the hand-painted artwork adorning the children's bedrooms. Neighbors often commented on her beautiful garden, filled with colorful flowers and the gentle hum of bees. This nurturing environment she created underscores the devastating impact of her disappearance on her young sons, who were suddenly deprived of their mother's loving care and the stability of their family home. The boys, Charlie and Braden, were typical, energetic youngsters. 7-year-old Charlie, the older brother, was described as bright and inquisitive, always eager to learn new things. 5-year-old Braden, with his infectious giggle and playful nature, was the heart of the family. They were often seen riding their bikes in the neighborhood, their youthful exuberance a source of joy for those who encountered them. The contrast between their innocent childhood and the dark events surrounding their family is a stark reminder of the devastating impact of crime on its victims, particularly children. The Powell family's life seemed to revolve around simple pleasures. Weekend trips to the local park, family movie nights, and holiday gatherings filled their days with laughter and shared experiences. They were active in their community, attending church services and participating in local events. These seemingly ordinary moments, once cherished memories, now carry a heavy weight of sadness and loss. They are a testament to the life that was abruptly shattered, leaving a void in the hearts of those who knew and loved the Powell family. Let's revisit the timeline leading up to the disappearance of Susan Cox Powell. December 6, 2009, began as an ordinary Sunday for the Powell family. Susan, Josh and their 2 young sons, Charlie and Braden, had spent the afternoon sledding with friends near their West Valley City, Utah home. They returned home around 5 p.m., had dinner, and seemingly settled in for the night. Josh later claimed that around midnight, he decided to take his sons on an impromptu camping trip to Simpson Springs, a remote area in the West Desert of Utah, about 2 hours away. This late-night excursion, in the dead of winter, seemed unusual, even to those who knew Josh's sometimes eccentric behavior. However, this was the last time Susan was seen alive. Yes, and it's this seemingly spontaneous camping trip that has baffled investigators for years. The weather conditions that night were harsh, freezing temperatures and snow. To pack up 2 young children and embark on such a trip in the middle of the night raises several questions. Josh maintains he had no premeditation, claiming it was a spur-of-the-moment decision. However, some investigators have theorized that this camping trip was, in fact, a carefully constructed alibi, designed to provide Josh with the time and opportunity to dispose of Susan's body. There is also the question of the camping gear. Did Josh have all the necessary equipment readily available for such a trip, or did he pack in advance, suggesting premeditation? According to Josh's account, he returned home from the purported camping trip around 5 p.m. on Monday, December 7th. He dropped the boys off at daycare, behaving as if nothing were amiss. This casual demeanor, after supposedly spending a night camping in freezing temperatures with 2 toddlers, struck some as peculiar. Neighbors reported seeing the Powell family minivan parked at the curb on Sunday night, which contradicts Josh's claim of having left for the camping trip around midnight. These discrepancies, though seemingly minor, begin to cast a shadow of doubt on Josh's narrative. They raise questions about his whereabouts and actions during the crucial hours when Susan vanished. The apparent normalcy of Josh's behavior following Susan's disappearance is certainly a key element in this case. He went to work, interacted with colleagues, and even participated in community events in the days immediately following. This outwardly calm demeanor has been interpreted in different ways. Some see it as evidence of his innocence, suggesting a man simply carrying on with his life after his wife's unexplained departure. Others, however, view it as a calculated performance, a mask, to conceal his involvement in her disappearance. The family's home life prior to Susan's disappearance is another crucial aspect to consider. Although they presented a picture of domestic bliss to the outside world, interviews with friends and family revealed a more complex picture. There were reports of marital strain, financial difficulties, and Josh's controlling behavior. Susan's friends reported that she had expressed fear of Josh in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, which adds a chilling layer to this already puzzling case. Absolutely. The seemingly idyllic facade of the Powell family home masked a troubling undercurrent. Susan's journal entries, which were later recovered by investigators, detailed her growing unease about Josh's behavior and her fears for her safety. These private writings provide a glimpse into the turmoil she was experiencing and further contradict the image of a happy marriage projected to the public. The journal entries are a crucial piece of evidence, offering a more intimate perspective on the dynamics within the Powell household. It's also worth noting that Josh had demonstrated a disturbing pattern of documenting mundane aspects of his life through video recordings and meticulous journal entries. He documented everything from grocery shopping trips to family outings, yet curiously, there is no record of the supposed camping trip. This absence of documentation further contributes to the growing suspicion surrounding Josh Ree's account. Yes. And adding to the intrigue is the discovery of Susan's blood in the family home. While not conclusive proof of foul play, the presence of her blood in the house, combined with Josh's inconsistent statements and the lack of any credible explanation for her disappearance, paints a very disturbing picture. The blood, coupled with the other elements, creates a compelling argument for further investigation into Josh's potential involvement. We've established the seemingly idyllic life the Powell family projected to the outside world. Susan, a devoted mother, Josh, a successful businessman, and their 2 young sons, Charlie and Braden. But behind this facade, cracks were beginning to show, particularly in Josh and Susan's marriage. Financial pressures mounted, and Josh's increasingly erratic behavior, coupled with his reported struggles with depression, painted a concerning picture. This backdrop sets the stage for the chilling events of December 6, 2009, a date that would shatter the illusion of normalcy and plunge the family into a nightmare. It's important to meticulously examine the sequence of events leading up to Susan's disappearance to understand the complexities of this case. The morning of December 6th began like any other winter day in West Valley City, Utah. Temperatures hovered below freezing as Susan prepared breakfast for her sons. Neighbors reported seeing her outside briefly, seemingly going about her usual routine. Josh claimed he took the boys on an impromptu camping trip in the Utah desert around 5 p.m., leaving Susan at home. This timeline, however, has been heavily scrutinized. Investigators found it peculiar that Josh would choose to take his young sons, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, camping in such harsh weather conditions, especially without informing his wife, who, according to Josh, was feeling unwell. This seemingly impulsive decision raises immediate red flags, and those red flags multiply when we consider the lack of corroborating evidence supporting Josh's camping trip narrative. No receipts for camping gear, no witnesses placing them at any campsite, and no concrete evidence of a campfire. His claim that he returned home around midnight to find Susan gone adds another layer of mystery. The house, according to initial police reports, showed no signs of forced entry, struggle, or any indication of foul play. Susan's purse, keys, and cell phone remained untouched. This lack of physical evidence makes the scene even more perplexing. Where could she have gone in the middle of a freezing winter night, leaving all her belongings behind? Josh's behavior following Susan's disappearance further fueled suspicion. He showed a disconcerting lack of urgency in reporting her missing. It wasn't until December 7th, almost a full day later, that he contacted authorities. His demeanor during those initial interviews was also noted as strangely detached and evasive. He offered conflicting accounts of his activities on the 6th, further muddying the waters of the investigation. The seemingly impulsive camping trip, the lack of evidence supporting his alibi, and his delayed reporting of Susan's disappearance all point towards a carefully constructed narrative, one that, under scrutiny, begins to unravel. It's crucial to remember the context of their deteriorating marriage when analyzing Josh's behavior. Financial strain, combined with reports of Josh's erratic behavior and reported mental health struggles, paints a troubling picture. While these factors don't necessarily indicate guilt, they provide a crucial framework for understanding the dynamics at play within the Powell household. The seemingly perfect facade they presented to the world masked internal conflicts that investigators couldn't ignore. The initial search for Susan involved local law enforcement, volunteers, and family members combing the surrounding areas. The focus, understandably, was on finding her safe and sound. However, as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the hope of finding Susan alive began to diminish. The search efforts shifted from a rescue mission to a recovery operation. The vastness of the Utah desert posed a significant challenge to investigators. The sheer scale of the potential search area made finding any trace of Susan incredibly difficult, hindering the progress of the investigation. The lack of a crime scene also presented a significant hurdle. Without physical evidence indicating what happened to Susan, investigators were left with more questions than answers. Was she abducted? Did she leave voluntarily? Or was something more sinister at play within the confines of the Powell home? These unanswered questions hung heavy over the investigation, adding to the complexity and mystery surrounding Susan's disappearance. The case, in its early stages, was a puzzle with missing pieces, a story without a clear narrative. And while the search for Susan continued, Josh's actions raised further suspicions. He began selling off Susan's belongings, including her car, and made plans to move his sons to Washington State, his home state. These actions, coupled with his inconsistent statements and lack of cooperation with the investigation, painted a picture of a man trying to distance himself from the unfolding tragedy. His behavior fueled public speculation and placed him firmly at the center of the investigation as the prime suspect in Susan's disappearance. The disappearance of Susan Powell on a freezing December night in 2009 sent a chill through West Valley City, Utah. The initial reports painted a picture of a family getting ready for church, a sudden snowstorm, and a husband and children leaving for a hastily planned camping trip in the middle of the night. It seemed unusual, certainly, but not immediately alarming. The desert can be unpredictable, and perhaps Josh Powell, the husband, simply misjudged the conditions. There was an assumption they might have gotten lost, stranded, or perhaps had a minor accident. The early hours were filled with a mixture of confusion and concern, but not outright panic. The focus was on finding a missing family, not investigating a crime. Yes, and that initial perception quickly began to shift as details emerged. Susan's friends and family members immediately voiced their concerns. They described a strained marriage, highlighting Josh's controlling behavior and Susan's growing fear for her safety. They mentioned her attempts to document potential financial discrepancies and her confided anxieties about her husband. These testimonies, coupled with Josh's strangely calm demeanor and inconsistent statements to the police, began to paint a more disturbing picture. The camping trip in freezing temperatures, with young children, started to seem less like a spontaneous adventure and more like a fabricated alibi. The sense of unease among investigators and the community intensified as the search for Susan yielded no results. The timeline of events immediately preceding Susan's disappearance became a crucial focus. Investigators meticulously pieced together the family's activities on that Sunday. Neighbors reported seeing Josh loading items into his minivan late at night, a detail that contradicted his initial claims. The lack of any credible evidence of a camping trip further fueled suspicion. The freezing temperatures and the vastness of the Utah desert made the idea of a family surviving a night outdoors without proper gear increasingly improbable. The search efforts intensified, but as days turned into weeks, hope began to dwindle. The lack of physical evidence hampered the investigation, but the growing suspicion surrounding Josh Powell was palpable. His behavior, described as evasive and uncooperative, raised red flags. He refused a polygraph test and hired a lawyer, actions that, while not proof of guilt, certainly amplified the public's distrust. The media attention surrounding the case grew exponentially, turning the Powell family tragedy into a national story. Every news outlet covered the search efforts, the conflicting accounts, and the growing speculation about Josh's involvement. The focus shifted from rescue to recovery as the weeks passed. The desert landscape, beautiful but unforgiving, held its secrets close. Search parties combed through vast areas, using helicopters, dogs, and volunteers on foot. But Susan remained elusive. The sense of helplessness and frustration grew among those involved in the search. The initial hope of finding her alive was gradually replaced by a grim acceptance that they might be searching for a body. The case took a devastating turn when, tragically, attention shifted from Susan's disappearance to the fate of her children, Charlie and Braden. After a protracted custody battle, a supervised visit between Josh and his sons ended in an unimaginable act of violence. The explosion that claimed the lives of Josh and his two young boys shocked the nation and left a community reeling in disbelief. This horrifying act compounded the tragedy, extinguishing any remaining hope of discovering what happened to Susan. The sheer brutality of Josh's actions left everyone grappling with unanswered questions. While the explosion provided a grim conclusion to one chapter of the story, it deepened the mystery surrounding Susan's disappearance. The lack of a confession or any definitive evidence meant that the full truth about what happened to Susan might never be known. The Powell family tragedy became a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. It highlighted the complexities of domestic disputes and the devastating consequences that can arise when fear and control escalate unchecked. The case continues to haunt investigators and the public alike, a chilling example of a mystery that may never be fully unveiled. Let's delve deeper into Josh Powell's psychological profile. On the surface, he presented himself as a grieving husband and devoted father. He publicly pleaded for his wife's safe return, participated in searches, and maintained a seemingly calm demeanor. However, beneath this facade, a darker, more troubling personality emerges when we examine his actions and statements more closely. His controlling behavior towards Susan, documented by friends and family, suggests a deep-seated need for dominance. This, coupled with his apparent lack of genuine emotion following Susan's disappearance, paints a picture of a man struggling with repressed anger and a potential for violence. We need to consider how this outward persona contradicted the mounting evidence against him. Absolutely. The contrast between Powell's public image and the investigators' findings is stark. While he portrayed himself as a loving husband, desperately searching for his missing wife, his actions told a different story. He quickly sold Susan's minivan, attempted to withdraw large sums of money from her accounts, and gave conflicting accounts of his whereabouts on the night of her disappearance. These behaviors, coupled with the discovery of Susan's blood in their home, strongly suggest a calculated attempt to cover up his involvement. His calm demeanor, often interpreted as stoicism, could also be viewed as a chilling display of detachment and a lack of remorse. This raises questions about his psychological state and the possibility of a premeditated crime masked by a carefully constructed public persona. The digital evidence further complicates the picture. Josh's internet search history revealed a disturbing fascination with methods of disposing of a body and escaping detection. This, combined with his attempts to clean up the bloodstains in the house, suggests a degree of premeditation and an awareness of his guilt. Yet he continued to maintain his innocence publicly, even going so far as to appear on national television to plead for Susan's return. This discrepancy between his private actions and public pronouncements points to a complex psychological makeup, possibly indicative of a narcissistic personality disorder or sociopathic tendencies. It's a chilling example of how someone can manipulate public perception while harboring a dark secret. Precisely. His manipulation extended beyond the media. He actively involved his children in the charade, bringing them to interviews and portraying himself as a single father struggling to cope with the loss of his wife. This calculated use of his children as props further underscores his manipulative nature and lack of empathy. It also raises questions about the extent to which he was willing to exploit those closest to him to maintain his fabricated narrative. The psychological impact on the children of being used in this way is undoubtedly devastating and adds another layer of tragedy to this already complex case. Another crucial aspect of Powell's psychological profile is his relationship with his father, Steve Powell. Steve was known to have obsessive and inappropriate feelings towards Susan, which he openly documented in journals and videos. Josh's exposure to this unhealthy dynamic within his family may have contributed to his own distorted views on relationships and control. It's possible that this environment normalized manipulative behavior and blurred the lines of acceptable boundaries, potentially influencing Josh's actions towards Susan. The influence of Steve Powell cannot be overstated. His journals revealed not only his obsession with Susan, but also a disturbing lack of empathy and a tendency towards manipulation. This raises the question of whether Josh learned these behaviors from his father, and whether this contributed to the escalating tensions in his own marriage. It's a tragic example of how dysfunctional family dynamics can have devastating consequences, potentially playing a role in the unraveling of Josh's life and ultimately leading to the tragic events that unfolded. It's important to note that while psychological profiling can offer valuable insights into a suspect's potential motivations and behaviors, it cannot definitively prove guilt. However, in Josh Powell's case, the psychological analysis, coupled with the physical evidence and witness testimonies, paints a compelling picture of a man capable of deception, manipulation, and ultimately, violence. His carefully constructed public persona masked a darker reality, one that investigators were determined to uncover. Indeed, the totality of the evidence, including the psychological profile, points towards a deeply disturbed individual who was capable of committing the horrific acts he was accused of. While we may never fully understand the complexities of Josh Powell's mind, the meticulous investigation and psychological analysis provide a chilling glimpse into the dark depths of this tragic case. The tragedy extends beyond Susan's disappearance to encompass the loss of the children and the devastating impact on all those involved. Let's delve into the investigative process following Susan Cox Powell's disappearance. The initial stages were unfortunately hampered by several missteps. One significant oversight was the delayed search of Josh Powell's vehicle. Crucially, the minivan wasn't thoroughly examined until several days after Susan vanished, potentially allowing vital evidence to be lost or compromised. This delay undoubtedly impacted the trajectory of the investigation, raising questions about the thoroughness of the initial response. Furthermore, the communication between law enforcement agencies appeared fragmented in the early days, leading to potential jurisdictional confusion and a lack of cohesive strategy. These initial missteps, however small they might seem in retrospect, cast a long shadow over the entire investigation. You're right to highlight those initial challenges. They were compounded by Josh Powell's evasiveness and lack of cooperation. He offered a flimsy alibi about taking his sons camping in the middle of the night during a blizzard, a story that immediately raised red flags. His demeanor throughout the initial interviews struck investigators as oddly detached and unconcerned for a husband whose wife had vanished without a trace. While not directly incriminating, his behavior fueled suspicions and hampered the investigation. The focus on him understandably intensified, further complicated by the lack of any other credible leads in those crucial early days. The investigation seemed to be chasing its tail, caught between a lack of concrete evidence and a growing sense of unease about Josh Powell's potential involvement. Another frustrating aspect of the case was the emergence of taunting communications in the months following Susan's disappearance. Several emails, purportedly from Susan, were sent to family and friends. These messages claimed she was safe and had left of her own volition. However, the content of the emails raised suspicions. The language used didn't quite match Susan's known writing style, and the details provided were vague and unconvincing. Investigators explored the possibility that these emails were fabricated, perhaps by someone close to the case attempting to mislead authorities and throw the investigation off track. This digital smokescreen only added another layer of complexity to an already perplexing case. The false hope generated by these emails was particularly cruel for Susan's family. They clung to the possibility that she was alive, only to have their hopes repeatedly dashed by the inconsistencies and eventual debunking of the messages. The psychological toll this took on the family is unimaginable. Furthermore, the focus on these communications diverted precious investigative resources, pulling investigators away from other potentially fruitful avenues of inquiry. The emails, whether genuine or fabricated, served as a significant distraction and a source of immense emotional turmoil for those desperately seeking answers. It's a chilling example of how misinformation can be weaponized in a criminal investigation. The investigation then took a dramatic turn when Josh Powell's father, Susan Powell, came under scrutiny. Investigators uncovered a disturbing collection of images and videos in his possession, suggesting an unhealthy obsession with Susan. This revelation painted a disturbing picture of the family dynamics and introduced another layer of complexity to the case. While Susan Powell's involvement in Susan's disappearance remained unclear, the discovery shifted the focus of the investigation and raised questions about whether a wider conspiracy was at play. The investigation began to explore the possibility that Josh's father might have played a role, either directly or indirectly, in Susan's disappearance. The discovery of Susan Powell's material introduced a new, deeply unsettling element to the investigation. It raised the specter of a potential cover-up, with the possibility that others in the Powell family might have been aware of, or even complicit in, Susan's disappearance. The already strained relationship between Josh Powell and law enforcement deteriorated further as suspicions mounted. He became increasingly isolated and uncooperative, further hindering the progress of the investigation. The case seemed to be spiraling into a labyrinth of speculation and suspicion, with concrete answers remaining frustratingly elusive. Amidst the growing despair, there were brief flickers of hope. Certain leads initially seemed promising, such as the discovery of Susan's blood in the family home. This, coupled with Josh's erratic behavior and changing alibis, provided some grounds for optimism that the truth might finally be revealed. However, these glimmers of hope often proved to be dead ends, leading to further frustration and disappointment for both investigators and Susan's family. The investigation was a roller coaster of promising leads and subsequent dead ends, a testament to the complexities and challenges of uncovering the truth in such a tangled web of deceit. And so, the investigation into Susan Cox Powell's disappearance continued, marked by missed opportunities, misleading information, and a pervasive sense of frustration. The investigation stretched on, becoming one of the most perplexing and high-profile missing person cases in recent history. The relentless pursuit of answers continued, driven by a determination to bring closure to Susan's family and hold those responsible accountable for her disappearance. Despite the numerous setbacks and challenges, the investigation pressed on, determined to unravel the truth behind this tragic mystery. The ripple effect of Susan Cox Powell's disappearance extended far beyond her immediate family. The community of West Valley City, Utah, was deeply shaken. This wasn't a crime that happened in the shadows. It unfolded in a seemingly ordinary suburban neighborhood, shattering the sense of safety and security for many residents. Neighbors who once felt comfortable leaving their doors unlocked began to double-check their security systems. Parents became more vigilant about their children's whereabouts. The pervasive uncertainty surrounding the case fostered a climate of fear and suspicion that lingered for years. The unanswered questions, the lack of closure, created a wound in the community that has yet to fully heal. The case became a constant topic of conversation, a shared trauma that bound the community together in grief and anxiety. Absolutely. And the impact on Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, was immeasurable. They dedicated their lives to searching for their daughter and her grandsons, tirelessly organizing searches, holding vigils, and advocating for justice. The emotional toll of this relentless pursuit, coupled with the agonizing uncertainty about their loved one's fate, was devastating. They poured their hearts and souls into finding answers, often facing public scrutiny and criticism along the way. Imagine the strength it took to face the media, to plead for information, while simultaneously battling the immense personal grief and the gnawing fear of the unknown. Their unwavering dedication became a testament to the power of parental love and the enduring hope for closure. Even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, they became symbols of resilience and perseverance for a community grappling with its own collective trauma. It's crucial to acknowledge the impact on Susan's sister Denise. She lost not only her sister but also her nephews in this horrific tragedy. She too became a vocal advocate for justice, working alongside her parents to keep the case in the public eye. The loss of her sister and the ongoing mystery surrounding their disappearance undoubtedly left deep emotional scars. Witnessing her parents' relentless struggle and sharing their grief must have been incredibly difficult. It's a burden no sibling should have to bear. The compounded loss within their family network speaks to the far-reaching consequences of this unresolved case. It emphasizes how such tragedies extend their tendrils outward, impacting multiple generations and leaving a legacy of pain and unanswered questions. We also must consider the psychological impact on the community at large. The Powell case became a fixture in local and national news, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of ordinary existence. This constant exposure, coupled with the lack of a definitive resolution, contributed to a sense of collective unease. People began to question their own safety and the safety of their loved ones. The case became a shared experience, a collective nightmare that fueled anxieties and fears. The ambiguity surrounding the case, the lack of clear answers, left a void in the community's psyche, a void filled with speculation, suspicion, and a pervasive sense of vulnerability. The prolonged uncertainty surrounding the Powell case created an environment of perpetual stress for the community. The absence of closure, the lack of a definitive answer to the question of what happened to Susan and her sons, prevented the community from healing. This ongoing uncertainty fueled rumors and speculation, creating an atmosphere of distrust and suspicion. The constant media attention, while crucial for keeping the case in the public eye, also served as a constant reminder of the tragedy, preventing the community from moving forward. It was a wound that was constantly being reopened, preventing the natural process of healing and recovery. The children in West Valley City grew up with the shadow of the Powell case hanging over them. For many, it was their first exposure to such a horrific event, shaping their understanding of the world and influencing their perceptions of safety and security. The case became ingrained in the community's narrative, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. The unanswered questions surrounding the case, the lack of a clear resolution, served as a constant reminder of the vulnerability of children and the potential for darkness to exist even in the most seemingly ordinary of places. It fostered a sense of unease that likely persisted into adulthood for many. The Powell case also highlighted the limitations of the justice system. Despite extensive investigations and tireless efforts by law enforcement, Susan Cox Powell and her sons remain missing. The lack of a definitive resolution underscores the challenges faced by investigators in complex missing persons cases. It also highlights the importance of continued advocacy and awareness in such cases to ensure that they are not forgotten and that the search for answers continues. This case serves as a sobering reminder that even with significant resources and dedicated efforts, justice is not always easily attained, and the pursuit of truth can be a long and arduous journey. And finally, the Powell case serves as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of domestic violence. While the exact circumstances surrounding Susan's disappearance remain unknown, the history of domestic issues within her marriage provides a crucial context for understanding the dynamics of the case. It underscores the importance of recognizing the signs of domestic violence and seeking help for those who are experiencing it. This case is a tragic testament to the potential consequences of unchecked domestic abuse and the devastating ripple effects it can have on families and communities. It reinforces the crucial need for continued awareness, education, and support for victims of domestic violence. Let's delve into the period immediately following Susan Cox Powell's disappearance. Remember, this is December 2009, the holidays, a time when families are typically together. Josh Powell, the husband, offered a rather peculiar explanation for his midnight camping trip with his young sons in freezing temperatures, a trip from which Susan never returned. He claimed it was a spontaneous adventure. This story, coupled with his generally uncooperative demeanor, immediately raised red flags for investigators. He seemed oddly detached, lacking the frantic worry one might expect from a husband whose wife has vanished. His behavior, while not directly incriminating, certainly contributed to the growing suspicion surrounding him. The timeline he presented simply didn't align with witness accounts and other emerging evidence. This was a critical juncture in the case, the point where the investigation truly began to focus on Josh. Precisely. The investigators, facing a missing person case with no body and a husband who seemed more evasive than distraught, had to tread carefully. They needed to build a case meticulously, gathering every scrap of evidence, scrutinizing every statement. The camping trip story was flimsy at best. Who takes young children, especially a baby, camping in the middle of a freezing December night on a whim? It defied logic and parental common sense. Then there was the issue of the rental car, returned days later than scheduled, and cleaned, which further amplified the investigators' suspicions. These seemingly small details began to weave a tapestry of deceit, painting a picture of a man trying to cover his tracks. The lack of a body, however, presented a significant challenge in building a solid case against him. The lack of a body in a missing person case, especially one as high profile as this, presents a significant challenge to law enforcement. It hinders the ability to establish cause of death, a key element in proving a homicide. In the Powell case, the absence of Susan's remains meant that investigators had to rely heavily on circumstantial evidence, piecing together a puzzle without the most crucial piece. They meticulously analyzed Josh's behavior, his inconsistent statements, and the physical evidence collected from the car and the family home. They were looking for any clue, however small, that could link him to Susan's disappearance. This painstaking process took months, with the investigation slowly but surely tightening the net around Josh. And then came the discovery of Susan's blood in the family home. This was a major breakthrough, a chilling piece of the puzzle that placed Susan at the scene and directly contradicted Josh's narrative. He had maintained that she had simply left, abandoning her family. But the presence of her blood in the house told a different story, a violent one. Forensic analysis revealed the blood was consistent with an impact, suggesting foul play. While it wasn't definitive proof of murder in the absence of a body, it significantly strengthened the case against Josh and pushed him further into the crosshairs of the investigation. This discovery shifted the case from a missing person investigation to a suspected homicide, a pivotal turning point. Alongside the blood evidence, investigators uncovered Josh's increasingly disturbing internet searches, inquiries related to disposing of a body in remote locations, and research into the legal ramifications of spousal disappearance. This digital trail painted a grim picture of premeditation and a desperate attempt to cover up a crime. It provided a glimpse into Josh's mindset leading up to Susan's disappearance and further solidified the theory that he was responsible for her vanishing. The digital footprint, combined with the physical evidence and his inconsistent statements, created a compelling narrative of guilt. This accumulating evidence, combined with Josh Ito's increasingly erratic behavior and his refusal to cooperate fully with the investigation, ultimately led to his being named a person of interest. While not formally charged with murder due to the lack of a body, the weight of suspicion against him was immense. The public eye was firmly fixed on him, and the pressure from both law enforcement and the media was relentless. This mounting pressure, combined with his own internal demons, would ultimately contribute to the tragic and horrifying climax of this story. It is crucial to remember the chilling detail of the children's drawings discovered later, depicting a van with 3 figures inside, seemingly driving away from a woman standing alone. These innocent illustrations, though not admissible in court, provided a haunting glimpse into the possible last moments of Susan Powell, seen through the eyes of her young sons. While not concrete evidence, they added another layer of tragedy and suspicion to the already complex narrative. And so, the net closed in. Faced with mounting evidence, intense public scrutiny, and a looming custody battle for his sons, Josh Powell made a final, horrific decision. In a supervised visit with his children, he locked out the social worker, brought the boys inside, and set the house ablaze, killing himself and his 2 innocent sons in a horrific act of familicide. This devastating act was the final, tragic chapter in the Powell family saga, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and unimaginable heartbreak. While it brought a shocking end to the immediate investigation, it further cemented Josh's culpability in the eyes of many, leaving a lingering sense of injustice and unresolved grief. It's unsettling, isn't it? We've spent 10 episodes dissecting this case, meticulously piecing together the fragments of information available to us. We've examined the timeline, the digital footprint, the financial records, the interviews. We've explored potential motives, from financial strain to marital discord. And yet, a definitive answer remains elusive. Josh Powell's actions, the blatant lies, the staged crime scene, the destruction of evidence, all point towards his guilt. But without a body, without a confession, there's a sliver of doubt that persists. A chilling reminder of how easily someone can manipulate the truth and disappear without a trace. The sheer audacity of his actions is staggering. To orchestrate such a complex deception involving his own children, while simultaneously maintaining a facade of innocence to the public. He manipulated the media, he manipulated his family, and he manipulated the legal system. He played the grieving husband, the concerned father, all while potentially harboring a dark secret. And the tragedy extends beyond Susan's disappearance. The loss of Charlie and Braden, their lives tragically cut short by their own father, adds another layer of incomprehensible heartbreak to this already devastating story. It's a grim reminder of the potential for evil that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. The case highlights the limitations of our investigative tools and the complexities of human behavior. We have circumstantial evidence, digital breadcrumbs, and witness testimonies that paint a grim picture. But without concrete physical evidence, the puzzle remains incomplete. This lack of closure is particularly agonizing for Susan's family, who have been robbed not only of their loved one, but also of the peace that comes with knowing the full truth. They continue to search for answers, clinging to hope, while simultaneously grappling with the horrific reality of what likely happened. And the children. We can't forget Charlie and Braden. They were pawns in a twisted game orchestrated by their father, their innocence exploited, their future stolen. A chilling audio recording of their final moments, captured just before the explosion, serves as a haunting testament to the devastating consequences of Josh Powell's actions. Their voices, filled with childish innocence, forever etched in the annals of this tragic case. They deserved so much more than to become collateral damage in their parents' conflict. The Powell case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and awareness. Domestic violence is often hidden behind closed doors, masked by a veneer of normalcy. We must be attuned to the subtle signs, the red flags that can indicate a potential danger. Perhaps if someone had noticed something, if someone had intervened, the outcome could have been different. But speculation is futile now. We are left with the chilling reality of a family destroyed, a community scarred, and a mystery that may never be fully solved. It's a case that stays with you. The unanswered questions, the sheer scale of the deception, the senseless loss of life. It forces us to confront the darker aspects of human nature, the potential for evil to reside within seemingly ordinary individuals. We may never definitively know what happened to Susan Powell. We can only hope that somewhere, somehow, she finds justice, and we must learn from this tragedy, striving to create a world where such horrors are prevented, where families are safe, and where children are protected. This case reinforces the importance of continued investigation, of never giving up hope for answers, and of supporting those who continue to search for truth and justice. The Powell family tragedy stands as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can exist hidden in plain sight, a darkness we must acknowledge and confront if we are to prevent similar tragedies in the future. It leaves us with the unsettling question: how well do we really know those closest to us? And perhaps even more unsettling, how well do we know ourselves? This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, the capacity for deception, the potential for violence. It leaves us with a lingering sense of unease, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. We can only hope that by examining cases like this, by understanding the complexities of human behavior, we can move towards a future where such tragedies are less likely to occur. Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant. Goodbye.